to another exciting show, Get Real with Jill on Spotify Video Podcast. And today I am super excited to have a longtime friend, a personal business coach who made a huge difference in my life. And she is an entrepreneur. She is a business leader. And you are the founder of Impact Coaching. And I would love to introduce my very good friend, Anita Hodges. Welcome, Anita.
Thank you, Jill. I'm delighted to be here.
I just look at you and I smile. You always bring a sense of peace and calmness.
That makes me happy.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm going to tell my husband that.
Okay.
Maybe disagree, but
yeah. So, Anita, just so that you guys know, today, what we're going to be talking about is her impact coaching. And whether it's business or your personal life or things that you need help with negotiations, could be with a family member, could be with a leader at your company. It can be somebody that works for you. Today, we're going to be kind of narrowing down some things and tools that can help you as you want to grow your business. And we're going to talk really specific about coaching and why coaching is important. And I am an example of why coaching is important and the difference that Anita made in my life. So we're going to talk about business and family negotiations, growth techniques, because you're going to bring some tools that she's going to share with us. The art of communication.
The art of communication.
And kind of sharing your faith and how this all has worked with the growth of your own personal business. And then I'm going to ask her some coaching questions. And as we go along, she's going to share possibly some books that we can read. And we're just going to have a discussion. So, Miss Anita.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, thank you for joining.
I'm excited to be here.
And Anita has been on the show multiple times, but here we are now at the Get Real with Jill studio. How do you like my studio?
I love your studio. I was not expecting this. It's great.
She was expecting the dining room table in the dining room.
That's what I expected.
Okay. So Anita, where should we start? Should we talk about, let's talk about first what impact coaching is and what is the whole point of all of this coaching, business, personal, all of that.
Yeah, okay, well, as you know, I began coaching, good Lord, almost 18 years ago. You and I met there. And I started business, kind of like small business entrepreneur and sales, things like that. And as the years progressed, I began to find that I not only had a niche for business and a lot of sales and communications negotiations, but that people would the things I would find out about people that were blocking their business and their life, and without really intending to, I started to get into life coaching, because if somebody had something that was absolutely an obstacle in their life, we'd have to talk about it, right? You know, we'd have to do that.
Right.
And so it became something that morphed and developed, and now I do a lot of it.
Okay, so the business coaching you were doing when I met you.
Yes.
Which that is so crazy to think. I mean, because you really made such a huge impact. And then it evolved into life coaching, kind of finding, because I see it as one.
It is one.
It is one.
It is one.
And really seeing that we, as just human people, as we are getting to our goals, there's just blockage. And sometimes the blockage is from the past, preventing us from what we want to move forward to the future. Is that kind of what you're saying too?
Yeah, and people can say that they will do business coaching for you, and they may do something that's like it's a program, and you got to do this, this, and this.
Oh,
you know, right? You've seen it,
yeah.
And it has its, in my opinion, kind of limited benefits, but it has some benefits, but they're limited. But if you actually are going to truly have transformative results, you have to make sure that the whole person is operating correctly.
Right.
And that's where I began to really see that no matter how much, if you wanted to do kind of, I told you I called it the plug and play coaching,
right?
Where it's just do this, you can do that, but you'll get limited results as well.
Because everybody's kind of doing the same. You're not. It's not
And you're not-
customized.
right? And
to
sometimes
you.
you're not addressing it. You're not addressing the customized problems that every single human being brings into their life.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we may all say, "Oh, I want to do XYZ amount in sales," and we have that goal, but we're all individual, so we really need to have that because there's things that are blocking us, and really, you kind of get that pulled out.
Yes.
You're very good at that. You really are, and I think that's just kind of your aura and your care for people and your heart, because that brings that you're very comforting. You just to do that.
Well, you know how we were. Excuse me. Let me just bang your.
Yeah, that's
I'm gonna
okay.
bang your chair. It's gonna be like this car.
Yeah.
You know how we were talking about our faith,
Mm-hmm.
and everything in my coaching is really kind of wrapped up in a desire to demonstrate
Mhm.
the love of God and the wisdom of God through my coaching. Because as much as I'm not proselytizing, I don't preach to people
Right,
or anything
right,
else like
right.
that. But I find that people have an understanding of integrity and purpose that they grow much more. It's almost like your growth is birthed in purpose and integrity, and
That's huge.
it's
Mhm,
huge,
mhm.
right? And I was thinking a few days ago that even before I was in coaching, I was leading Bible studies and doing things like that are always wrapped around kind of the human heart, the human soul, and the growth of that. I don't know. It's almost felt like
Yeah.
it all came together.
It
at one
did.
point.
It
Yeah,
really did.
it did.
So let's talk about business and even like negotiating, whether it's family or business. Can we start there?
If you'd like to.
Or where would you tell me, where do you want to start?
Well, I've got in my mind, I've
Okay,
got
yeah, let's
three
do that.
things that
Okay.
I would like to bring to
Okay,
your
yes,
listeners
please. Yes.
that I think are helpful.
Okay,
And
yes.
matter of fact, you started with it in regards to the whole life coaching. 3 tools that I
Okay.
think that we can use that would help with communication. Because here's what I think, Jill, is as you know, with the advent of texting and social media and all of that, the art of communication is really being lost.
Right, yeah.
And the lower the more our ability to communicate well, the more it devolves. The higher we see the rise in hatred and fear and polarization, and it's really because so much of it is we are not communicating at all. We're talking, but the way I see it now, it's just like 2 people in the room yelling at the exact same time.
Yeah,
We're
it's
not
like a
doing
Real
that.
Housewives show. But I think people out there, I know we all have this, and it could be very extreme, could be minor, but in reality, whether you are sending that text or interpreting that text, let's say, your interpretation could be something different and just be like on fire when that person didn't intend that.
Absolutely.
Or maybe that person did intend that, and you're like, whoa. And we are getting out of face-to-face or on the phone communication.
Yes, and oftentimes I will talk to people about that, and they go, well, I always just email, or I always just text. I'm like, well, great, how's that working out for you? Right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like to the first point that I was thinking of is that the very foundation of communication is to recognize, number one, that even though there is truth and there is reality, none of us see it exactly right. It's an idea, it's true. We all have basically 3 brains. We think we have 1. We have 3.
Okay.
Right? We have the reptilian brain, which is fight, flight, or freeze. Right? We have the limbic brain, which is our emotions. Right? The reptilian brain is continuously operating in a completely unconscious fashion without our help or anything. The limbic brain, emotional memories, things like that. Sometimes we're conscious of it, sometimes we're not. And then there's the frontal lobe, the neocortex, right? We always think that we're speaking to that neocortex, that frontal lobe, but we're not.
So are you bringing this up because it's for people that are trying to get something across and just not getting to where their communication needs?
Right.
Like, they could be communicating wrong.
Well, that's the right part, because one of the things that you need to ask yourself whenever you are really trying to have a deep conversation with somebody is, not what is going on here, but what is their perception of what's going on here, right? And on top of that, what is my perception of what is going on here?
And it's getting worse because of our climate, or just our worldly climate of just from everything from politics to this technology, and now AI.
I know.
AI, I can have them send a text message.
I told my husband the other day, I said, I'm leaving you for ChatGPT because they're nicer to me. He's like, wow, I didn't see that coming.
I like that. So give me an example of something like that then, that you're thinking that you...
Perceptions.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking with somebody just the other day where they had been in deep conversation with somebody for a long time. Okay. And so they asked that person, what did you get from this? How did you see this, right? And they were thinking that they were going to be talking about all of the different points and things like that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the person responded with, wow, I thought it was really nice when you said this or that, or I thought your clothes looked so nice that day. I mean, nothing was the same, right? And it was this huge, like, oh my gosh, we were both in the same room. We were both having the same conversation, but we were both having two different experiences.
So, which is so important for us to recognize, and we often don't, and then we're just talking over each other, just trying to get our points across and accepted.
We, oftentimes in a conversation, we are waiting to respond instead of listening to hear.
Or we just respond.
Or we just respond. I even didn't want to say that we're listening to respond, because sometimes if all we're doing is ready to respond, we're not listening at all.
Oh, and that happens all the time.
It happens all the time.
Because when you're talking to somebody and they bring something up, let's just say about a dog or something like that, and oh, I have an Aussie and she just did this. Well, in my head, I'm like, well, I have an Aussie and she swim. Like, let's zip, right? Like, and then that kind of, I think, also takes away from you telling me about, and again, you guys, this is an example, you telling me about your dogs and how cool they are. Like, I have to jump in with about people do that all day long. Like, that comes in right away. And it's like, I'm not really, why don't I ask more questions?
About your dog.
Yes.
Right?
Okay, so how long have you had your dog? How old is your dog?
It's actually, and you know, a lot of times we think what we're doing is like, oh, we're finding common ground.
Exactly.
Right?
It totally, yeah.
But actually it's rude. It's rude because the person, they give you a gift. I've opened up to you, I've told you about this. And then you say, you imply with your behavior that it doesn't matter. What I have is more important. Let's stop talking about you and let's start talking about me. And by the way, that's not communication. That's you speak, I speak. You speak, I speak. Right. And so the very founding blocks of communication aren't happening. Stephen Covey always says, seek first to understand.
Seek for, yes. Okay, sales, hello. And that common ground in sales, we think when somebody says, oh, you know, I lost my parent, I had to go clean the house out, it's been very difficult. Instead of embracing what they're saying and showing empathy, it's like, oh my gosh, I had to do that last year. And then it becomes us. Like, you can't do that.
And that's not common ground.
No, right?
Yeah.
So are you teaching those kind of?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So how do you teach that? Like,
about a year ago, I had a woman that I was on Zoom in a coaching call, and I popped on with her, and she was on another call, and she was lit up. She was unhappy in this call. So of course she's doing this to me.
Okay.
And she's in real estate. And she starts. I'm hearing both sides of the conversation. Right? Because she's got the woman on speakerphone as I'm sitting there just waiting for her to start the Zoom. And she's popping off at the lady, right? She is absolutely popping off because she's coming from what her limbic system was, I'm afraid I'm going to lose this deal, and then she's attacking, right?
Yeah.
And I am like,
oh,
right? And finally, I'm like,
oh,
right? And she says, I gotta call you back. Hangs up, she goes, what?
oh,
Right? And I'm like, do you want to save that deal or not? taught her was, she said, this buyer, she had to sell, this buyer is so selfish. And I said, really? That's what you think, huh? Yes. And so the first thing I taught her, and this isn't one of the ones I was going to do, but let's take it right now.
Yeah.
Because when we get fired up like this, one of the first things we need to do. By the way, what I'm going to tell you just comes from Never Split the Difference.
Oh,
by
what?
Chris
Like
Voss.
yes. Okay.
Yeah, this is a
Just
technique.
that's that's. You know, people just say it, but there's meat to this big
Oh
time.
my gosh! Look, this one right here, negotiations. This is the negotiations Bible.
Okay.
So one of the things that he teaches you is that whenever you're in a place of negotiations, and especially with this woman, where the negotiations were not going well, you need to ask yourself, what could be 3 possible things, 3 possible reasons why this person is acting like this? And if you can, think of them as things that are a little more gracious, something that you could have some compassion for, something that you could, not bad things, right? And so you think of 3 possible things. Now what that does is it forces the limbic brain to stop coming up with stories where you've got to fight.
Oh,
right?
Because you're in defense mode and
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then it also causes you to
stubbornness.
start opening your brain up to what could be the possibilities.
Yeah.
Right? So it stops this is what I see, and what I see is 100% true. It has to be. It's my perception. It's got to be true, right?
Right.
So I had her do that, and she really didn't feel like it. She didn't.
Oh, I'm sure she was like,
no, she was mad.
She probably didn't even want to talk to you.
Not really, but I made her come up with the 3 and, kind of calmed down. She saved that deal. And it was like a $2.1 million deal.
Oh
it was not a small thing.
Ooh,
I'm like, you're welcome. That was quite a commission. You're welcome.
Right. Yeah.
But that was one of the ways I taught her.
Yeah.
Right?
Because she was getting heated. She could have lost the deal.
She was telling them to send the cancellation papers over. She was ready and done.
Yeah. Oh, that was God's timing. I will say that was God's timing. Yeah.
Yes, I believe that. And here's
Yeah.
the thing. It's what we call a soft skill. Communication is a soft skill. But it put money in her pocket.
Right. Yeah.
And people forget that the spoken word and the listening ear done right, it's profitable money, it's profitable for relationships, it's profitable for everything.
So I think too that we all have this situation in different ways. And that's why, and then we know it and recognize it, but the hamster wheel keeps going and maybe goes down a different road, but it's still the hamster wheel and it's going down the wrong road, which I really think that's why coaching, and we just covered one little thing here. That's why I think coaching is so important, because I know we can't do it alone. We always have God, but on the human side, we definitely need that human help as well.
Iron sharpens iron.
What was that?
As iron sharpens iron.
Oh,
right?
yes, I love that. Yes.
Wisdom comes with a multitude of counsel. Yes.
Okay, so what else? What was number, or did we cover enough for number
We
one?
covered number 1. We got into one that I wasn't intending to do.
Okay.
But here's one, Jill, and I know you know this because you and I came from the same corporation. But for your listeners, it's an easy one. And it's really important. So kind of basic, but one of the ones that I always tell people is take butt out of your language. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's another word too, and also we'll talk about
Okay,
that.
good, right? So take butt out of your language. So basically,
Yes.
the subconscious brain will hear but as a negation of anything you've already said.
Like, right? Yeah.
I love you, but clean up your room.
Right. I love that.
Right?
So let's hold that thought.
Yes.
Let's take a break because
Okay.
but we will come back. All right, you guys, we'll be right back.